Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm AD the Barber. Today I'm going to show you guys a high taper transitioning from a mohawk. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with my wall seniors with my number 2 guard on. So this client here, he doesn't want his hair super low like it is on the sides where the mohawk faded out at. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you guys how you can still give the client what they want, keeping their hair really nice and dark on top and still get a nice taper. So I'm gonna just continue to cut the hair down. Number 2, clippers all the way closed. And the goal is to get as smooth of a cut as I possibly can. So after we go ahead and finish cutting down the hair with the number 2 guard, I want to keep a nice defined C-cup line here. So in order to do that, and just to make sure I don't fade it out too much, I always like to start out with lining up the C's of the lining first. And to achieve this, I'm using my Andis style liner tools. So at this point, I'm not really going for a finish perfect C-cup line. I'm doing this more as of a guide, just so I know that I need to keep this line defined and not totally bald it out. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna repeat the same process here on the other side, just lining up the C cup and doing the line right behind the ear. That's it for right now. When I get to the end of the haircut, that's when I'll go and I'll do the official full lineup process. And another great tip when you're doing the C part of the lineup, just remember to use the corners of your clippers. So here on the back, I'm gonna do the same sort of thing, not giving it a finished lineup, just doing more of a guideline. Transitioning from the mohawk, you can see the shape that the mohawk came down to the V in the back. And so with the taper, I don't want that same lineup. So I'm just gonna outline where the new line is gonna be. And so that way, when I go in with my taper, I can blend it all in. So now after I finish creating my lineup guidelines, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create my fading guidelines now. I'm gonna create these guidelines in the same way I'll do any other taper. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fade it out the same way I always will. And as you can see where the shades of the hair changes from where the mohawk was faded before, I'm not gonna worry about that weight right now. All I'm gonna do is go in, I'm gonna fade out this guideline I create, and then I'll come back and I'll worry about the weight in the hair at the top. Remember to use the corners of your clippers when you're creating these guidelines and not the full blade. Now when I get around to the back, I'm just gonna bald out just the middle where the mohawk came down into a V. Since the sides are already super light, I'm just gonna leave them be, and I'll go in and I'll just blend it out as I regularly would, and it should blend in perfectly. Now to begin the blending process, I'm gonna take my wall 5-star seniors, clippers all the way closed, and I'm gonna go in with just the corners, starting to tap out that guideline. And pay attention to the technique that I'm using. I'm just using the corners of the clippers, hitting up the bottom of the line, not creating a new line, but blending out the line that I currently have. And remember to keep the clippers flush to the head. So after you're comfortable with how well you blended that line out, now you can start to move your clippers up. So now I'm halfway and I'm using the same technique, clippers flush, corners of the clippers, now just blending out the weight that I currently have. And again, the same process. Now I blended out that weight as best as I possibly could with the clippers that had the halfway mark. Now I'm gonna open them up wide open, and I'm gonna use the same technique again, not creating a new line, but just blending out the weight that I currently have. Again, I want to remind you, I'm not worried about that weight that I have at the top of the head right now. All I'm worrying about is just the taper that I'm working on and getting that weight blended out as best as possible. And then I'll go in with a larger guard to blend out that weight at the top. Now I'm going to take my wall number 1 guard all the way open, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to finish blending out that weight that I have right at the top of my initial taper. Still not up to the weight where the transition from the Mohawk is. Pay attention to the C part of the lining. As you can see that I never blended it out, and so I've been trying to keep that taper just inside of that lining because I want to keep that line as defined as possible. And now I'm going to take my Andis Pro Foil shaver, and I'm just going to barely just tap out the very bottom of my taper. I'm not going to go up above the ear. I just want to get the very bottom, right where the hair meets the sideburn at. Now I'm using the same exact techniques on the right side of the head, clippers all the way closed, no guard, and I'm going to start to blend out that original guideline I had created. Now I'm back with my number 1 guard again, blending out the top of the taper. Now when I get around to the back, you can see that my weight is all in the middle. And so I want to start with my clippers closed, and I just want to go in and start to tap out some of that weight. Just focusing right there in the middle where the Mohawk came down to a V. And the goal is to blend this in so that you never would have known there was a V lining there before. And again, just working my way up the same way I did on the sides of my haircut. You see in the back, I can use a little bit more of the middle of my clippers compared to just the corners, but your fades will be a lot more accurate when you use the corners of the clippers. And again, you can see as I'm getting higher up, I'm moving out wider towards the lining that I created. Now, it's always good to recognize when it's time to switch to another higher guard. As you can see, I just pointed out where the weight and the hair is in the back of this taper. So now I'm going to take my number 1 guard, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to blend out that weight. And now as I'm starting to really get rid of a lot of that weight in the haircut, you can see that my taper in the back is really starting to come together nicely. So after I get my initial tapers complete, now it's time to transition this haircut from where the Mohawk was down into your new taper. So I'm going to take my number 1.5 wall guard all the way open, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to blend out that weight at the top, and it's really going to make this taper start to pop out. And the thing I really like about this haircut is that I don't have to cut my client's hair down to a level that he wouldn't be happy with. Again, pay special attention to the technique that I'm using. I have a lot more of a straightforward motion right here, and I'm keeping the clippers really flush to the head and kind of digging in there, just trying to blend out that weight as best as I possibly can. And you can see how I started with the lever all the way open on the clippers. I always like to do that because then you have less room for air. And you can always take more hair off, but you can't put it back on after you already cut it off. So as I go in and I'm blending out that weight, I'm just moving my lever up and down until I can find the right adjustment that I need to fully blend that out. Here I'm going to take my number 1 guard all the way open, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to use this to help try to blend that line out a little bit better. Don't be afraid to experiment with different size guards. If you're having trouble blending a certain part out, then try different guards and see what helps you get that line out as best as possible. Now after I get that left side complete, I want to go in and I'm going to use the same exact process again on my right side. You can see I still have that same weight line that I had on the other side just because of the mohawk, and so I'm going to go in and start to work this out again. So after we get all the blending finished out, now it's time to go in and put our finishing touches on the haircut. I'm using my Andy style liner tools again. I'm just starting from the middle of his hairline, just working my way to the right. And after I finish off the right, then I'll work my way back to the left, staying on the same line just to make sure that we keep it as straight as possible. Now to really make this haircut stand out, I'm going to take my straight razor, using short strokes, and remember to stretch the skin. It's very important to do because it's going to help you get a true straight line, as well as not to cut the client. So here goes the finished product. Hope you guys like this cut, and I hope you learned a lot from this video. If you got questions, make sure you go ahead and hit me up in the comments, and make sure you subscribe. This has been AD. I'm out.